Good morning, everyone. This is Alicia Katz-Pollock from Royalwise.com, and welcome to QuickBooks Online's banking feed. This is absolutely one of my favorite classes to teach. I'm kind of known for being a bank feeds geek, and that's because the banking feed is one of those tools that has absolutely transformed how bookkeeping is done. Whereas bookkeeping used to be the act of entering in every transaction into your bookkeeping software, the banking feed allows you to automate everything that's routine so that you can do better things with your time. You know, you can see more clients, you can do advisory, you can spend some time with your family. So I really believe that the banking feed is transforming the industry. And the thing about the banking feed, though, is that if you use it correctly, it's just, it's fantastic. If you don't use it properly, then it can actually cause bad data. And then you actually have more work to do because you have to figure out what's wrong and clean things up. It's kind of my perspective that the more training you can get in the beginning so that you understand how it works and why it does what it does, then you can be in control of the banking feed and really make it shine. So that's why we are here. And so let's go ahead and get started. A little bit about me while we are waiting for everybody else to join the club. My name is Alicia Katz-Pollock, and I will be your tour guide. I'm a top 100 pro advisor from Insightful Accountant. I've been in the top 200 for about 6 years, and last year I cracked the top 100. I am part of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, and I am one of their national speakers. So if you're a bookkeeper looking for certification and you go to qbtrainingevents.com, I'm either one of the presenters or one of the little elves in the back answering the questions. And then if you go to any bookkeeping accounting conferences, I'm one of the speakers at Scaling New Heights this coming October. I'm one of the speakers at QuickBooks Connect, and I just absolutely love training. One of the things that makes me unique is that I have a master's in teaching. And so I have a kind of a delivery style, but instead of teaching 7th grade English, that was kind of my idea of hell. And so I decided to teach adults instead. And I just love accounting and bookkeeping. So it's kind of like a perfect storm of all of my talents. And so to that end, at Royalwise.com, I have a mentorship program and a vast video library. This is one of the courses inside that video library. And so if you are either a business owner who is adopting QBO, QuickBooks Online, for your business, or if you're a bookkeeper who's learning QuickBooks Online so that you can best serve your clients, I have a complete training package. In addition to all of my courses at Royalwise.com, I have a desk reference called Master QuickBooks Online from Setup to Tax Time. That's a book about how to use QBO. And then I also have another book that's a little bit more advanced about specialty retail for gas stations and convenience stores. I'm also the author of QuickBooks Desktop Complete, which is a high school and college textbook for learning QuickBooks Desktop, and I'm in the process of rewriting it for QuickBooks Online as well. So that's enough about me. Let's get going to why you are here. There are handouts for today. So when you log into royalwise.com, you can either look on your enrolled tab or on your completed tab, because once you've been through the course, it moves to a completed section. And there we have all the slides from the presentation today so that you have those as a reference. So here are the things that we are going to talk about. So we're going to start by talking about the banking center. We're going to talk about how to connect your bank accounts to it, how the interface works. I want to spend some time talking about the artificial intelligence so that you understand the computer logic behind the scenes. We'll talk about when not to use banking. We'll talk about receipt capture. I'm going to show you a bunch of my time-saving tips and tricks. I'm going to show you some tools like Find Match. We're going to spend some time making rules for the automation so that you can actually learn to control the automation. We'll also do some troubleshooting. We'll look at signs that the bank feed was used incorrectly and how to fix those problems. And then if we have time, I'll also take a look at, I'll show you kind of a cool approach to managing your corporate credit cards in the banking feed. So that's all the stuff that we are going to talk about. I do want to point out that we have adopted this new iceberg analogy in our courses because there's so much to know when you are learning to manage your company's records. My courses are kind of divided into the tip of the iceberg, the core courses, and then the deep dives. And today's class is a deep dive. We're going to spend 2 hours just on the banking feed. And those 2 hours are going to save you tons and tons and tons of time and a lot of frustration in using your QuickBooks. So welcome to a deep dive class. So the first thing that we want to do is talk about using the Banking Center itself. What is the Banking Center? So the Banking Center is an area inside your QuickBooks Online that integrates with your banks and your credit cards so that you have kind of a checks and balances system, and I shouldn't use the word checks because it has a different meaning, but you have a way of confirming information that you're putting into your QuickBooks. That there's 2 styles of data entry in QuickBooks, that you can either be proactive, that you are actively entering every business activity as it happens, or maybe you're going back after the fact and you actually use the Banking Center to pull in all of today's transactions or all of the week's transactions all at once. And so if you are somebody who does actually actively enter in all the business transactions as they happen, the Banking Center is a way of confirming and validating everything that you do to make sure it matches reality. And if you are one of those companies where you just kind of do your data entry in batches, then the Banking Center actually speeds up your data entry because instead of literally having to put in every single transaction, you can just see what cleared the bank and use that Banking Center to code it or make rules that automate it. So what the Banking Center does is it gives you the opportunity to take a look at all of the transactions coming in from your checking accounts, your savings accounts, your credit cards, your loans, PayPal, Square, and then validate and confirm all of the transactions in your QuickBooks. So then, like I said, you can make rules and that allows you to automate it. You can also use it to pull in your receipts. There's a whole receipt capture section. So it's really important that you have paper backup to demonstrate that everything that happened in your business really happened. And, the IRS, if you ever get audited, they want to see that backup. There is a system for actually pulling in JPEGs and PDFs of your receipts through the Banking Center. And brand new, you were one of the first people to hear this, there's new import tools for Amazon for Business and for Square. And so I'm going to be able to touch on those just a little bit today. Okay, so the first thing that you need when you are connecting your banking feed is to connect your bank accounts to QuickBooks. There's 2 ways of doing it. There's Direct Connect and Web Connect. So Direct Connect is really what we're talking about here, where there's a built-in connection to your bank in order to download the transactions. And it works by a token. And so you log into your bank through your QuickBooks and you put in the username, you put in a password, you might have a confirmation text as well. And then it makes a permanent connection that uses a token. And the good news about that is even if you change the password on the website, you don't have to reconnect it to QuickBooks Online anymore. Back in the day, if you change your password, you had to reconnect your QuickBooks. And so for those of you who are bookkeepers, it was a pain because you had to go talk to the business owner and go get them to update it. You don't even have to do that anymore. Once you're connected, you're solidly connected. When you make that connection, it goes back either up to 2 years of history generally, but it really depends on the bank. The first time you connect, it'll bring in either just this week or this month or 90 days or up to 2 years if you really want it to. And then that way, what happens is you get all of the transactions, you can start matching them. And then every day you come in and you click the Update Now button and it goes and it checks in with the bank and it pulls in all the fresh transactions for all the banking activity for the day. And then you go through the bank feed in order to confirm all of the transactions. So the way that it works, like I said, is you tell it what bank, you put in your username and password, you go through their security questions, and then you map the account. You say, oh, this one is this credit card, this one is this checking account, this one is that savings account. And there's a little pro tip on the screen also that if you're having trouble figuring out the bank URL, you can actually, what I recommend is that you go to your browser and you go to the login screen for your bank and then copy that URL. And then you can paste it into QBO and it finds it. For most banks, you don't need to do that. The other way that you can connect your QBO to your bank is by Web Connect. And this is the old school way of doing it, where you log into your bank and you go to the account that you want and you tell it, I want the transactions for June 1st through June 30th. And then you download those transactions and then you import those transactions. And you still have the ability to do that. So if you happen to have a bank that doesn't connect to QBO, there are a few, but there's really not many, you can still use the banking center. You just have to manually take their time to go to the bank, do the download, and then do the import. Some banks are limited with that. Some banks will only go back for a year or 18 months, and it's or they'll only allow you to export 3 months at a time. And so you have to jump through some extra hoops. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's really rare that you're going to need this, but I do want to at least put a couple seeds of information in your head that when you are exporting from the bank's website to your QuickBooks, it brings in either a CSV, which stands for comma separated values, or an Excel spreadsheet. And most of the time those import just fine. But when you bring in that spreadsheet, sometimes it puts all the money out in one column and the money in a second column. And that's totally smooth import. Some of them sometimes it has them all in one column and it has just minuses and pluses as you go. That also works just fine. Where it gets rough is Amex, American Express does the opposite, that a charge you would think is a negative, but for them it's a positive. And then when you pay it, it reduces the balance. And so Amex is flipped. And so there are some banks where you can't just do the download and import it. There's some banks where you have to actually go into the spreadsheet and change the date formats or flip the negatives to the positives. And so sometimes those take a little bit of extra work. I'm going to go in and show you what that looks like, at least to the best of my ability. So I'm going to be working in 2 sample files to do my demonstrations today. One of them is Craig's Design and Landscaping, which is a free sandbox company that you can get to anytime by going to, I'm going to show the URL for this. It's qbo.intuit.com/reader, as in redirect/test drive. And you can open this up on your browser anytime. And it's a sandbox place where you can play with your QuickBooks without having any real data to muck around with. And so we're going to do some of the work here. I also have another sample company open for any time that I can't show you what I need to show you in the sample company. So in order to get to the banking center, I'm on the left-hand side, it says banking. Now your file might say transactions here, but it's the same center. And so I'm going to go into banking. And because this is a sample file, it's got a couple, a checking account, a savings account, and a MasterCard set up for me to play with. But for this section, we're talking about how to connect an account. And so what you do is you go to this link account button right here, and it will ask you which is your bank, and then you pick what your bank is. And now this is the sample company, so I can't continue, but now it would ask me for the username and the password, and I would put those in and start going through the security questions. So that's how the connection actually happens for the direct connect. If you have the Web Connect where you're importing in the transactions, that's also right here under the link account button. But now what I'm going to do is drop down that arrow, and then it gives me the option to upload from file. And then it will ask me, well, where's the spreadsheet? And I go browse around for it. Here's the different formats that you can use, CSV. There's also a couple different exports that your bank might have, like a QFX, a QBO, OFX, or text file. And then you would just go ahead and do the input. Okay. And so I'm going to cancel that window right there. And so again, the URL to this is qbo.intuit.com/reader, REDIR, as in redirect/test drive. And so again, that's where you can do all your playing around. Okay. So here's something totally important that will mess with your head if you aren't aware that this actually happens. When you connect your banking feed to your QuickBooks Online for the very, very first time, whatever date range you choose, whether it's this week, 90 days, 2 years, whatever the day before the first date of the feed is, your QBO is going to make an opening balance equity entry for whatever the balance was in the bank or on the credit card at the time. And what makes this really confusing is that it puts it in the register for you, doesn't tell you, and marks it reconciled. This is helpful if you're a brand new company, you don't have any data transactions in there, and you connect the bank feed and you say, okay, I want to start as of January 1st. So it will go in and make a December 31st transaction. And that's when it works really well. When it doesn't work well is when you already have transactions inside your QuickBooks or you're doing some other importing. In that case, you've already got a balance and it makes this extra balance. And when you go to reconcile for the first time, your numbers are wildly different. You're like, what's wrong here? The thing to do is go look in your register to the date before the bank feed started and look for that already reconciled opening balance equity entry. And either you can just flat out delete it, or you can edit it to adjust for any other setup work that you're doing. So either way, it's fine. You just have to know that it's there and manage it. You're either going to change it to compensate for some extra transactions that you entered, or you're going to just delete it completely. And then whoop, you're ready to go.